Okay, so thank you. I call to order this January 30th, 2020 meeting of the Public Safety Committee. Roll call, please.
Chairman Blanca?
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Here.
And Alderwoman Sims?
Here.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 2A, the approval of the amendment, or approval or amendments to the agenda. Having looked at the agenda, does anybody on the committee have any amendments or changes to make? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as submitted. We have no announcements, nor any city administrator's report. We have next on the list would be reports of committee chair and alderman. The chairman has no report. Alderman Lockmiller?
I got two things, if I could.
Yeah.
Dan, I think back in October, Sally came in to talk about was a speed limit sign that was on Bremerton, where one side, Rock Hill side's 20 miles an hour, and the other one's, our side's 25. And something about changing out that sign.
You can't just change it, you'd have to change the ordinance, because the ordinance lists what the posted speed limits are for each street, so to speak. So, I mean, you could, if you wanted to change the ordinance and change our speed limit, or you could just leave it alone and know that one side's one speed and one's the other.
All right.
I guess it,
Do you want to take up some kind of a item to talk about?
Maybe at the next meeting,
Okay.
if we could put that
To
on
make
the
it so that
agenda.
it's consistent with the other side of the street.
Yeah, we'll make it consistent.
yeah, because I did look and there's no MUTCD requirement to have them identical on opposite sides of a roadway.
Okay, so it's just our ordinance as it is 25 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
it says like, say Strasser, I know is a different speed, like any of your other residentials are 20, but then certain specific ones are 25. You know, I think maybe the most is 30 on McKnight. So
And
it'd be
then-
like if Ladue changed their side to 25, you know, would we follow suit or would we leave it?
Okay. All right, and then,
Is there direction for the next meeting?
Tell you what, we'll,
want to just put it on next month's
Yep.
agenda?
and I'll contact you. Can we put that on as an action item for new business item for next month? Okay.
Thanks. Then my second thing was, during the budget process, we had requested speed humps, one for each ward, and I'm just wondering if we need to develop a policy for how those, where and when those are deployed, if we're going to use the tool kit that we put together a couple of years ago, or...
It's not articulated, but we're going to cover that in 9A.
Oh, okay, great.
But it's not listed out as,
Okay.
as an item. I had that as a item to bring up at that point too.
Perfect. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anything?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, we're at the department reports. 6A, please. Chief, please.
Yes, sir. To start with, just want to give you a quick update on the K-9 program that we initiated. On the 7th, we have a meeting of the small board, the three-person board that has been formed to do the 5013C, and they have applied for that. Next week on the 7th, we're going to actually discuss fundraising processes. So just to give you a quick update on that. A quick update on our hiring. As you know, we're down 3 police officers and have been for a long time now. We have just completed our hiring process and we're able to hire 2 officers. So they will onboard on the 10th of February, and then we're hoping to get it on the 17th Board of Aldermen meeting for an official swearing in by BOLA. So we'll be 1 off of our strength at that point.
They'll give us 27.
Yes, sir. The last 3 weeks, basically the month of January, in terms of crime, knock on wood, but it's been very quiet here in Brentwood for the last 3 weeks. It was kind of funny, the mayor had coffee with a cop this morning, and he called yesterday and wanted an update on car clouding. So Angie and I and Bo went through, and we saw that there were no car cloudings for 2 weeks, which I think is a record for Brentwood. After I sent it to the mayor and hit send, a lady walked in and reported her car broken into on Bremerton. Literally
The lesson
within...
is that the mayor's got to stop asking.
Exactly. Yeah, I blame it on him. So we really, for the last 3 weeks, it's been a quiet time for us, which is obviously welcome. So
If I may interject, you know, the chief did spread throughout the community those signs, and it was working because it seemed like a number of our residents did follow it. So
The lockup.
I think there needs to be an increased effort to push that out, because the lady that he was referencing just now indicated that because she lives in a cul-de-sac, she thought they couldn't come there. So obviously we haven't done a full penetration of the community, so we need to do a little bit more. And when you all have your ward meetings, if you can help us spread the word out as well.
And Major Hawkins is going the next thing I was going to talk about was the 2019 crime, and just give you a little bit of an overview on how 19 went, what our successes were, what our concerns were. We uploaded onto board docs the 2019, and there were 5 documents we put on there. The first one that we put on, if any of you want a hard copy of these here, I brought some copies if anybody would like one, but on the first sheet, just so it's clear, these are calls for service, and on the sheet it's telling you that these do not necessarily become police reports, meaning the officers got to the call and they either determined an offense had occurred and wrote a report, or they didn't. So these aren't necessarily calls that were criminal incidents.
Somebody jump around.
Jump around.
I think so, yeah.
Wow. Talk about rapid tension.
Can we quit now?
Yeah.
That was an intermission.
Yeah.
There were 2 things on this first sheet that I did want to draw to your attention. The first one is the number of contract patrols that the officers did. And again, there are 7 areas that you see on this sheet. The officers are required, as they ride each block in Brentwood in their shifts, to call out to the dispatcher that they're in that area. So as you can see, there were almost 10,000 calls for service by Brentwood officers throughout 19 into those 7 areas for directed patrol service, which is remarkable. That was a surprising number to me. The other thing is that you see on this list is 821 total arrests by a small department that was short 3 officers for a good deal of the year. So these are people that, some of them are driven by retail, obviously. We have shoplifting arrests in there, but they're also driven by several good arrests throughout the year for car cloudings and robberies and detectives making cases. So on the second sheet, it sums up the Part 1 crimes, which were the more serious offenses. A couple things of note on there. We had 5 robberies reported and taken as incidents in Brentwood. All of them occurred at night. Out of those robberies, 2 of them occurred at a all-night gas station, and the other 3 occurred around our hotels. And again, they were all on the night watch. 2 of them were armed carjackings at the Jury, and the other was a robbery at Spring Hill. I know that we often talk about nighttime crime, but our violent crime is typically happening at night, and that's a good example of it. On a related note, the burglaries we had, the business burglaries we had, all occurred on the night watch as well. The Vault got hit twice with smash and grabs. The AT&T store got hit. So these are the type of crimes, along with the robberies, that are happening at night. So I'm going to ask Angie to talk about our auto thefts. They were interesting. Angie, can you go ahead, please?
Sure. If you'll look on that second page there, the one the chief was just referencing, the last little box talks about vehicle theft, and you'll see 33 vehicle thefts. Of those 33, one of them was a traditional break into the car, break down the steering column, and drive away in the vehicle. All of the others were either warm-up steals or steals where the keys were in the car. All of the other ones. So kind of to piggyback what Bola said, I agree that message needs to be kind of just saturated in the community. I know a lot of people, I think, have the feeling of, oh, I live on a cul-de-sac, or this hasn't happened to me yet, or whatever the case is. But clearly the opportunity is there, and folks will take it. So considering, though, I think that those are pretty great numbers if you really think about that. It's not as if we're getting constantly broken into in that regard. And the pages, I think it's page 5 and 6 detail that, where the auto thefts are. If you'll flip to that really quickly too, it gives you in the last 2 columns there recovery location and then remarks. The recovery location, a lot of those are St. Louis City. And that's pretty much in keeping with the pattern that we see. folks from the city coming in and taking our cars back to their towns and bailing out. So that's just something of note I wanted to point out about the auto thefts. It seems like a large number, and a lot of it's kind of driven more by opportunity than it is by anything else.
The last thing on this list that we were going to briefly discuss was the high accident locations, and we listed those for you on the last attachment. And you quickly realize that our high accident locations are all occurring up around Music Memorial and up in that retail area. Obviously, there's tons of people that come and go, and we did try to go to St. Louis County and get some signage put there. The county wouldn't allow it. We do have officers detailed up there from time to time doing traffic enforcement, but even that's difficult to do there because of the volume of traffic. I mean, running traffic stops up there actually causes more problems. So, but those are the high accident locations. The McKnight Road issue that Dan's here to talk about, I believe, later. Angie can bounce in on that as well. We did a lot of enforcement on the McKnight Road truck problem that Don and Odine have been pounding on. So we are able to produce those numbers if you'd like to see them in terms of the number of summonses and number of details we've had up there for traffic. Anybody have any questions about the crime?
I have a question. Do you, as any kind of regular part of meeting with other chiefs, do you ever discuss regional crime experience? Is that any kind of a formal conversation, or is it just kind of as it comes up?
Yes, we do, but it really is more focused in the detective bureaus. So the sharing of the they have regular meetings. So the detectives amongst the cities have a very good relationships, and so they share data. And that's why I can tell you that the cities around Brentwood recently, in the last few months, have been much more affected by nighttime crime than we have.
So that was where I was going with the question, was whether or not this trend, less activity that we're experiencing, is that something that you're hearing about in adjacent communities?
No, they're actually up in activity. And again, as Angie referenced, it's the same crews coming out of East St. Louis, North County area that are doing it. It's where are they choosing to do it? And I'm very cautious in telling you that what we're doing is working and we got the magic wand. Because at the same time, when they're up, you're going to be looking at me going, where'd your wand go? Right? But I do think that the patrols that the Brentwood officers do at night are impactful. We look at their GPS every day, and one thing that you have that the whole community needs to understand is the bad guys see us all the time. We may not see them all the time, meaning at 3 in the morning. If they see a marked patrol car, they're liable to go to Ladue or Richmond Heights just to get away from that pressure that they don't want anything to do with, particularly in the neighborhoods if they see a patrol car. I don't know if you saw the case 2 weeks ago where, I can't remember the guy's name. Foley, you might be able to help me with this. The mayor was out with
Over on Parkside.
Oh, yeah,
Parkside. I can't remember the man's name now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
So what happened on that, the detectives figured out,
We left.
yeah,
Yeah.
they,
That's right.
I'm a witness.
you're a witness.
No, I saw him leave Obie Clark's to go
okay.
to the scene.
So the
So-
detectives were able to figure out, they backtracked and were able to figure out, because the car came through our messaging board, which has the LPR on it, they were able to backtrack that. Long story short, the guy was breaking in cars. And to the point we were just discussing, he saw a marked car, had a gun in his car. So they did what we call go to base, right? So they act like they belong in the neighborhood. She gets out and goes, knocks on the door.
About this loud.
Thinking that the police are going to go, oh, well, they're neighbors, or they're visiting, and
Right.
trying to fit in, trying to make it play it off like they belong there.
Right.
He threw his gun under the bush. Well, as soon as they knew the officer had passed by and wasn't going to play with him, he runs and gets his gun. She gets in the car and they leave. So that's what happened.
He didn't get his gun.
Oh, we recovered the gun.
Right.
We get the gun back, but they leave the area,
Right.
never to come back until they got visited by the
And,
detectives.
and
So-
their conversation gets recorded on the little
On the ring.
ring or whatever you call
Called for
that.
Arlo. This one was an Arlo surveillance camera.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the point being that these patrols are definitely have an impact on that nighttime crime, and sometimes we don't know what we don't see. You just don't.
Right.
And
So
I
it's
think
hard to quantify it.
it is. And I think the messaging trailer shed sends an immediate message to them coming into town. We put a decoy car there with a safety point, checkpoint coming at them. They don't like that. Those are the kind of things that they tend to go to Richmond Heights, Ladue, and Maplewood, and Town and Country.
I feel like they've gone to Ladue quite a bit.
They like Ladue, yeah. So, and it's kind of unfortunate that that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
We run them out of Brentwood. They try and run them out of Ladue.
Right.
Is that an effective way to do business? I don't know. I know we got 2.2 square miles we're responsible for, and all you people that live there. So,
Well, it's
that's what
you know,
we're worried
and it's
about.
one of those things where you almost wonder if some kind of not just the sharing of information on a detective basis in terms of investigating ongoing crime, but as to whether or not there might be some desire to have some kind of I don't know if you call it a summit or what it would be, but some collection of police chiefs to get together and say, we're figuring out this is working. We'd like to.
We do have those discussions.
Sure.
The other thing that happens is we have a monthly meeting. It is detectives that go to it, but they do share the information among the chiefs and the bosses. And it's run by the city of St. Louis, and it's all the known players. So they come together and they look at trends. They look at groups of guys that are active. They look at guys getting out of the penitentiary that they know are going to reoffend. That kind of information sharing is I think is very important to our detectives. But the truth of the matter is, where the boots hit the street is where this gets most affected. At 3 a.m. when we have a policeman riding in your neighborhood doing his job or her job looking for these guys, that is, that's the detectives are after the fact.
Yeah.
Just what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're good at the follow up, and they catch a lot of these guys after the fact. But anyway.
I was at a conference or workshop this afternoon in Columbia, and Judge Jimmy Edwards, who's the Director of Public Safety for the City of St. Louis, was there, and he kind of mentioned some of the things that Chief Spees just said, but he said another tool that they have, and he is very well assured he's going to be sued over it, is the access to these criminals' Facebook account, so that they can trace the fact that they want to go out and either rob or kill someone before they do so, because
they post
they
that on
Wait, they
social
put that on
media.
their Facebook?
because that's the same tool they use to go find them after they've killed someone. So it's all kinds of tools that all departments are trying to use, hoping that it works. So that's just additional
There isn't a
information.
detective worth their salt not doing that right now. I just give you a quick example of the guy that was involved in a police shooting in Richmond Heights at the Gallery Mall. 30 minutes or so before he was killed by the police, he was in a Uber cab, real-time YouTubing with the gun,
Facebook Live.
or whatever,
Oh, Facebook.
whatever these people.
Interneting, yes.
But there's, I don't use
They
Facebook.
called up the people over YouTube, yeah.
There's a certain person I don't like to
Dozens of
mention.
14-year-old kids are rolling their eyes right now. Oh my God, how can you not know that?
Last year taught me that I don't like social media, and I think all of you know who I'm talking about. I won't mention the person by name. I don't like social media. Anyway, but that guy was armed with the gun 30 minutes prior, same gun he was killed with. That's the kind of things they do. That's how bold they are on these. And you can connect these dots as an investigator pretty easily in terms of who they're running with and what they do. So.
Amazing. You have a question? Yeah.
Along those lines, Chief, you've got some that are marked arrested in here.
Mhm.
If they're picked up in the city of St. Louis, are they booked down there, or do they come out to the county and get booked?
They're booked as a fugitive of Brentwood or wherever, fugitive St. Louis County, whatever the fugitives are. So they'll book them, and then we'll go down and grab them.
Okay.
And usually they have multiple jurisdictions, especially these guys that are doing us, because they'll likely be wanted by other jurisdictions. So what happens is we kind of pass them to each station, and they get interviewed and whatever. So yeah, it's kind of
How many of them do they end up in jail? Or, I mean,
it
is
really
Is the
depends.
court system doing something to put these guys away?
Yes and no. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the judge. It depends on how old the person is. Depends on how many offenses they've had in their history. There's a lot of variables there. But just to give you a quick example, late last November, help Angie on this one, our guys and gals caught 4 good guys breaking in cars. I think 3 of them were armed. County didn't want to issue the warrants. So our judge issued warrants on them and held them until we got the county squared away, and they issued warrants on them. And there, I believe a couple of those guys may still be in jail. They were high bonded. So yeah, the answer is yeah, and sometimes we got to shove the system forward. We've got a good relationship with Wesley Bell's office, so we can call directly if we need to. Yeah, so it's, but in terms of their sentencing, the juvenile piece of this is a mess. There's no denying that. They have to do a really violent crime to be held in juvenile.
The age for juveniles are going up to 18.
Yeah.
So it gets worse.
And then you had another thing in here regarding forced incident and total arrest.
Use of force incidents?
Yeah, use of force.
Mhm.
Can you explain all that?
Angie, you want to take that?
Sure. That's anything from somebody who has to use hands-on just to basically force someone's hands behind their back to taser deployment, maybe just a physical wrestling match. We didn't have anything that was of very serious nature whatsoever. So that's basically what those are.
I was just curious. I didn't know what that all meant.
Yeah.
That was the 5 events mentioned in the, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief Kurt.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You bet.
I've got quite a few things to go over. Does anybody have any questions about the January 13th to 19th weekly activity report? Not, I'm going to
I
move
don't.
on.
Okay.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Great. So with that said, I just want to let everybody know that we had a pre-construction meeting with Interior Construction Services Limited, who was the bidder that received the awarded contract to do the ADA project at the firehouse. And I was not there, but Chief Cottrell was there, and that all went well. We are kind of at a holding pattern until City Hall is completed and Planning Department moves out of our building, because where the work needs to happen is where everybody is. And so our project manager, Dave Lauber with Horner Schifrin, is well aware of that and is working with Kyle on his project. So he's very much in tune with timing and everything like that. So
Was the timing still this month?
I haven't heard anything to that contrary.
You
no.
mean City Hall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, end of next month.
Yeah, end of February.
Yeah.
end of February.
I know we're still in January, I know that, but in my head, I was thinking February, so it was by the end of February? Okay.
Which is fine.
I
That'll,
didn't mean you had a day.
so anyway, that's our ADA project. Terry's been very involved. Terry Johnson's been very much involved in it. She was at the pre-construction meeting, and my understanding is it was made clear to the contractor that everything absolutely has to hit her mark. So we're going into it with good information sharing and high expectations. So changing gears just a little bit, we have a promotion process that I received 2 applications for, both internal employees for a lieutenant's process. We have 1 opening. When Lieutenant Bruno retired last fall, we'll be filling his position. That application period closed on the 24th, and the next step is they're required to get 60 days of study time for the promotional testing materials, so we won't really start any of that until March. My goal is to have a candidate selected and present to BOLA by the end of March. So that process will be involving a written exam. It'll be involving a practical computer simulated fire evaluation, an oral interview, and then an interview with myself and Chief Cottrell. And then we'll make our decision. Jason Coates will be very much involved throughout that whole process as well. So we've been super busy trying to get a lot of projects off the ground. We were able to work with Don Brown Chevrolet and order 2 command vehicles for myself and Chief Cottrell. Ronnie's been working hard on that. We're hoping the cars will be in around mid-February, and we're trying to wrap up the piece on emergency equipment packages on lights, sirens, and outfitting the cars, which case once we have that all finalized, we'll be taking that forward for approval. Ronnie and his ambulance committee are working on final specifications for the new ambulance. So once those are done, then we'll be able to start getting pricing put in place. With all of these, the command cars, we use the state of Missouri purchasing contract, and with the ambulance, we're hoping to use a nationally vetted purchasing contract, and so that makes this a lot easier on us, not having to create an RFP. We have the inflatable boat is in, the boat motor is ordered, and they're working on the trailer design and specifications so we can get that on order as soon as possible. So I'm hoping that'll be up and going by mid-spring or so. Shifting gears again, I wanted to update you guys on a lot of EMS stuff that's going on. This seems to be the year of EMS changes in Medicare and Medicaid. So a while back, we came to the committee, we came to the board looking for approval to participate in the Missouri Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program, MOGEMT. That gives us an opportunity to take all of our actual costs of service providing EMS services to this community. So they're looking at salaries, they're looking at building costs, they're looking at utilities. Very in-depth amount of financial work that Karen Shaw has been helping us with. We filed our application and report on December 31st as required. We've had one follow-up request for information. So hopefully that will all be finalized very shortly. And this is very much in pencil, but it looks like we're hoping to see somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 of costs coming into the city as a result of that, after fees. So please don't hold me to that number. That's just their estimate. The other thing that we've been hit with this year is Medicare and Medicaid, which goes under the heading of CMS, has enrolled us in their cost data recovery collection process for the next year. So we didn't have a choice on that. They are trying to evaluate whether their fee reimbursal rates are high enough for EMS calls, so they're gathering information for the next 12 months. There's a real big slice of participating departments, and again, we don't have a choice. We were selected by them. But anyway, so we'll be providing a lot of data and information to CMS for that project. Again, with the intent that if their reimbursal rates for Medicare and Medicaid calls are too low, that they will adjust those by the standard in the area. So we're hoping that maybe we'll see some increased collection fees out of that somewhere in the future.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Is that going to incur for us any costs in terms of personnel and manpower?
At this moment, I don't think it'll be very impactful, but again, it's very preliminary, so I really don't know. It's like the GEMT program. We were very concerned about that, and it wasn't quite as bad as we thought. I don't know on this data recovery or data collection thing.
So we were pressed into service by CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to provide this information.
Right.
Did they make any allowances for us being able to bill them for the time and us gathering and
I
providing?
have not seen anything about that.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have not seen anything about that. So after we gather all this information out of the MOGEMT program, we'll have a better idea on our real cost numbers. I've been advised by EMSMC, our ambulance billing company, that there's a real critical ratio between what we can collect and what Medicare and Medicaid will pay. There's a certain percentage sweet spot, if you will, that we want to be in. So we're going to work towards achieving that and reevaluate our billing rates and bring that forward to the committee for review and approval a little bit later this year. So I just want to let you all know that that was coming and that we were going to be looking at increasing those rates. Now keep in mind, there's no billing to Brentwood residents other than what their insurance companies will pay. So this should not have any impact on their out-of-pocket expenses. This would be for our transient activity in town, visitors to town, whatever, where we'll be seeing those increases if we move forward with this. And then we have one item that we want to address on our billing policy. So we have an ambulance billing policy that was created when Chief Jury and I first got here. We found a little bit of a glitch in that when we have a city employee get hurt, a bill is being generated on their behalf and then sent to the city. So we're essentially billing ourselves at that point. Now that gets sent on to workers' comp and paid for. But I think we would like to consider adding no billing to city employees, so we're not dealing with that either through higher workers' comp rates or out-of-pocket expenses from the city. So that's just something we've run into, and I wanted to let you know we'd be bringing forward with an amendment to that policy. So
What's that experience? What's that loss experience like? How many calls for service?
it's
city
not
employees?
high. It's not high. Maybe 1 or 2 a year at the most.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but we just found ourselves in this position of saying, why do we need to spend $1,400 or $1,500 or cost workman's comp rates to go up? So if we can fix that, even for a couple, I think it's worth it. And then lastly, SSM Healthcare is our medical direction provider. So there's 2 physicians that are directly involved, and there's a big department in SSM that handles emergency medical services and medical direction. It's not just for us, it's a large number of departments and ambulance districts throughout the area. They changed medical service contract for their physicians. There was a company that the physicians worked for called Schumacher Clinical, and their contract ran out, and I guess they chose not to renew it, and they brought a new company in, so we're getting all new medical direction contracts. So coincidentally, I just saw in my email before we started the meeting that it looks like my contract came this afternoon, so I'll have that reviewed by Mr. O'Keefe, and I'll be bringing that forward for approval so we can get that on board.
Will that go here first, or will that go?
That will
directly to
go
the
here
board?
first.
Very good.
Yep. So I think that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Any questions? Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda involving items 7A and 7B, minutes from October 23rd, and then minutes from December 3rd. Have the committee members had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any motions or questions about the minutes, or motions to redact or to add anything to the minutes?
Let's make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Under old business, we have our streetlight project update, and I wish I had confetti or something to throw up in the air. But with that, I'll recognize Dan, our Public Works Director, and ask him to give us an update on that streetlight project.
Okay. Yeah, whenever I actually put this memo together, we were in the process of doing the last one of the group of 20 that we did the bids on last year. That was the one between 9400 9414 Parkside. So that's, the base is installed, the light itself is laying next to the base. I looked at it today, and then the 2 up, well, it'd be to the east of there in the island of Parkside, they're erected. So the lights are installed, they pulled the wire up, but they haven't terminated it yet to the light. So it's in the process. I would assume Ameren, if they're not done tomorrow, it'd be early next week with that group. They've already installed and they're live at Kempton and Pine, Kempton and Sonora, Tillis, and I thought there was one other spot, but they're just going to keep doing them until they finish all 20 of them, and then that part of their contract's done.
Sure.
And then we can move on to the ones at York Village. And then of the group of 6 that we didn't do anything with, we actually did do something with 3 of them. If you recall, we put in solar lights at 3 locations. So Bedford, Barnstable, and Laverne Court are the 3 that have solar. So there's still 3 that have nothing that were rejected, but we can, reevaluate that later if you want. If you want to try another solar grouping, or maybe the temperature of the group has changed.
Okay.
The ones that didn't like it.
Any questions from the committee? I have one question. So with regard to the solar options, are there more options? I know that, so just speaking as a resident of York, I've talked to our trustees, and they really like the idea of a solar option, but weren't really excited about that. The solar design was a little more modern than what they wanted. Have you been able to locate any other solar option that might be a little more traditional?
I did find I guess they refer to it as colonial, so it would have 4 faces to it. So it would blend in more so there. The solar panels on top, what I don't know is how well the lighting output is you know, the illuminance like
Yeah.
we do the other ones. So we can get a sample, you know, try it out. I did find one company that has it. The other ones they didn't like were the Colonial, but they have a cantilever panel. So you see the solar collector is like an arm that's extending off the pole,
Oh.
but they didn't like that visually. So it's like, well, those actually perform better than the ones with it on top, but the ones with it on top are what they're looking at because they don't want to see the panel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
trying to narrow it down, it's pretty tight to find something just like that. They make ones for your house, but I mean, those aren't going to do a good job on the street.
So how do we go forward with that?
Well, I don't want to take up the committee's time on that. I'll reach out.
Yeah, I can put it in the weekly report once I narrow it down. But
I mean, the other option, of course, is the hard wiring.
yeah, you can still go with that. It's just gonna, you know, they're gonna have to either bore or trench in a conduit. Typically, they bore it, and then they'll just have to pull the wires, but we'll still have to coordinate with Ameren. So because it's more than 10,000, I know these were like $3,500 a piece, so I automatically know it's more than 10,000, which triggers an RFP, which means you have to go out for bids. We know how that first round went. We didn't get any. Then the second time we got 5, I believe.
Okay. Okay. I didn't have any other questions. Anybody else have any? Okay. Thank you for that update. The next item is back to you again. It's under new business. 9A is the traffic calming analysis.
Yeah, the traffic calming I was asked to look at in particular was on McKnight. Someone had suggested that we put in a yellow diamond-shaped sign, you know, at Whitehall Court, because Whitehall Court used to have one, a vehicle or something struck it, it was damaged. Those yellow diamonds don't exist. They don't meet MUTCD. You can't find manufacturers. The only place I could find a yellow sign, but it's actually rectangular, is in Canada, and I won't put a Canadian sign in because it doesn't meet MUTCD. Because it said it needs to be a white background with black lettering because it's a regulatory sign. Because it's enforceable. It's just like speed limit signs. That's why speed limit signs, you don't see orange in one city and yellow. Everything's the same.
So is there any, what is is it a white sign?
It's a white sign. There's a visual of it in the memo, and then I think I got one too. If I can find it. Yeah, it's one of these. It's the way it's labeled in MUTCD is R10-7. So it says do not block intersections, white with black lettering. The ones that are there are a diamond shape, because I took some photos of those. So in your memo, there's one at York Hills Drive. It's yellow that's mounted below the speed limit sign. That doesn't exist anymore. I don't know how they got them. They're there, but I know I can't find them through any catalog. Or, I know that no one sells them.
Okay.
So that led me to believe that maybe they used to be acceptable. I don't know. I went all the way back to 2009, and the one that I picked out is the one that they manufactured in 09 and
So-
to date.
Is that York Hills Drive sign have to come down?
I was going to wait until it was damaged, but what I thought I could compromise would be to put in the white sign, and then I did find there's actually a warning sign you could buy that shows a picture of an intersection, so it's that. So this is a warning sign. It's not enforceable, it's just warning you, hey, there's an intersection. The other sign, the regulatory sign, now says don't block that intersection, that you should know there's an intersection.
Okay.
So you would put the combination of them, the yellow diamond up above, and then below it, don't block the intersection. But even if I put those signs up, I'm sure someone's gonna block the intersection, so.
Like various times of the day anyway.
Right,
So-
yeah.
So insofar as this is concerned, are you recommending anything that we do? Are you recommending that we take?
I was gonna wait and then change them out, but I know the resident or whoever asked for the request wanted all 4 of them to be consistent. It's like, well, I can't find that yellow one anymore, so I either need
Right.
to take the other 3 down if you wanna make it consistent and put up, like I said, a warning that there's an intersection, but then do not block goes back to white. You don't get the yellow.
Right, the one that's yellow now would be replaced.
Right, all 3 of those would come down, because there is another yellow sign, but it's not a diamond, it's the one below the stop sign that says oncoming traffic does not stop at the blinking
Right.
stop sign at the north end.
Yeah, but
And that would be changed out to a white sign?
No, that one's actually acceptable the way it is.
Oh, okay,
That's what's kind of confusing.
okay. Did you have a question?
yeah, I'm really confused now. I thought Whitehall already had a sign that says do not block the intersection in white.
It does.
Right
Okay.
now, it's right there.
Yeah, it's there.
I
It's
see
this
it.
one. They wanted a yellow one like York Hills. and
Okay,
like
they
the
can't have a
doesn't
yellow
exist.
one because they don't make them anymore.
Right. If they
Alright.
ever did, I don't know. I mean, obviously somebody made it, but I don't know that it ever met MUTCD or FHWA.
Well, then what do we
The
need?
white one's definitely acceptable and you do
Because
not
the
need.
resident is insistent on what she
Right.
wants.
She wants a yellow sign? Okay, good.
But we can't find it,
Right.
it's not made,
They
so
don't-
that's our answer.
Yeah, the only
Have
yellow
has that
sign
been
is.
communicated to her?
Have you communicated?
I have not. I wanted to see what the committee.
I would just indicate to her that that's the sign they make, those are the only signs we're permitted to use any longer.
Yeah.
The other ones will be phased out as they're damaged
Right.
and replaced with what you got there.
Yeah. Do you want that in some sort of a direction? I mean, is that what your sense of it too? Or?
Sounds good to me.
And that's my sense of it. I mean, I would
To just phase them out. Yeah,
Yeah,
because they're
say,
not
look.
expensive. I mean, they were a little over
She has been
$100.
contacting her older person as well.
Right.
Really? Okay.
Isn't that you?
Not me.
Ward 1 issue.
I mean, I have my phone with me. I don't know. It's not a secret. My number's not a secret or anything. Maybe Nancy's been contacted. I don't know. I'm more than happy to talk to her and tell her exactly what we're saying here tonight.
Okay.
But I think that's the message is that there is a sign there. It meets the standards that we are going to uphold. The fact that another sign that's been sort of grandfathered in that's there doesn't mean we're going to compound the problem.
Right.
And as that yellow sign becomes damaged or needs to be removed, then it's going to be
With
removed.
the white.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll just replace it with what is appropriate.
Here, if they weather too bad too, that's when we get rid of them. We either reface them or get rid of them. You need to be able to see them.
Did you? So I have a. This interested has anything on this issue. I had a couple more issues on traffic calming.
Okay.
So the first one is kind of just a question. Have you gotten any feedback from anybody who has compared the bars that are lit on Blitzinger? The
On Strasser?
Yeah, on Strasser.
Oh, Strasser, I was like,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Across from the Y
The
to
pedestrian crossing?
Yes. Has anybody said anything about whether or not that?
I've never heard any
Bars have
comments.
been-
Me personally, I thought the rectangular rapid flash was, I don't know, to me, I thought that was better than the one around the embedded one around the sign. That's
Okay.
my 2 cents.
It was more visible.
Right, for some reason, it just seemed like I was gravitated towards the rectangular beacon flashing versus the one around the sign seemed a little more subtle.
Okay. I just was curious more than anything else. The other thing that I had to do with Litzinger, between Cecilia and Helen. There was wasn't there a petition last April that was brought to you with regard to traffic calming in that area near Mark Twain School?
The only thing we're planning on doing there is putting up some signs, like there's a path that runs east of Cecilia that people like use it to and from Mark Twain. So what we planned on doing there was putting up some warning signs indicating that there's pedestrians moving
Because
about
there was a
there.
resident who walked her
Yep.
dog and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody wanted a crosswalk painted across Helen, but on the north side of Litzinger, there is no sidewalk, there's utility poles. They said, well, you don't put in a crosswalk because that's telling you to walk here, and then when you get to the other side, there's nothing. I just took you over into no man's land. It's better to do nothing at all, and then it's the pedestrians.
So when is the signage, the warning signage, set to be deployed? Do you think?
For this, it's just, the diamond signs that we pick out, and one of them has like a bicyclist and a pedestrian walking to indicate that there's movement, activity.
How soon can
We have to order them. I mean, they're usually a couple-week turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, was there a?
That's the one that I
traffic calming
remember.
request for something to be done last year?
Yes, they wanted a crosswalk painted. They
Oh, they
said that
wanted-
there used to be one, but when you look at Google Earth and go back using the history on Google Earth, there
Yeah.
is none. So
Okay.
either someone's misremembering or I don't have enough information from Google Earth, but going back a decade, I don't see anything.
Knowing what the problem is, do you have any suggestions? Would it make any sense to restrict traffic to one way in that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when there's school, I get it because there's no sidewalk on either the north or south side once you go past Helen. And actually, there's none on the south side, I don't believe.
We're talking about 3/4 of a block or so, right?
Yeah, it's a very odd alignment, and then
It is.
because we gave away right away, or someone gave away right away, the utilities are there on the north side of Blitzinger, you can't put in a sidewalk. If you tried to shove it on the south side, then that property, those houses are gonna be impacted, you're gonna have a sidewalk right in their front yard, basically. It's just,
Could sidewalk be built, I mean, could sidewalk be built out into the street?
I see what you're saying, you'd have to give up some of the street, which that's already narrow there, I don't know about fire, you probably don't want Blitzinger any narrower than it already is.
I mean, we typically shoot for a minimum of 22 feet.
22?
That's what
Yeah. I don't know what it is there,
FPA
but
allows us as a minimum.
Okay. So if the message is that what the community wanted to do really can't be done for the reasons you already stated, the crosswalk can't be done, the signage is going to be done?
Yeah, just because I thought, well, there are folks that walk, there's not a whole lot, but I do see them, so I don't disagree that there should be more visibility, especially for people not familiar with the area. I mean, if you came up Cecilia and didn't know anything about Brentwood, you wouldn't necessarily know there's an elementary school as soon as you would turn when you get up the hill and make a left.
Right, no,
to go
and that's right,
westbound.
because of the change, right.
Right.
Well, what about this? I mean, if it could be looked into to look at whether or not the 22 feet minimum could still be maintained
Mhm.
with some sort of a sidewalk that doesn't put itself into the front yards of the properties that are there.
Yeah, we could look at the right-of-way map and figure out what width we have, and, how far could you go either north or south. Again, the north, I would say, is not an option because you've got
It's a
utilities.
utility, right.
Yeah, it's all overhead electric, and then the folks also have fences in their backyards, and you'd have to probably shove those over, which they'd lose a backyard, and I don't think that would be favorable.
Okay. Okay, and if
Yeah.
this is if this is a public-driven request, if people were to get together and make that specific request, that's something you could act on in your department.
Mhm.
It could be made part of the traffic calming.
Yeah, all the warning signs and stuff like that are simple.
Well, I mean the sidewalk notion specifically.
Sidewalk we could pour, but again, it becomes a real estate issue. Do you have the property and do you want to pay
Right,
them?
and I'm not saying we go right to that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, for now, can we talk about to see if that's a.
Right, you can definitely see like what do we have, what would we need, because if you put in something new, of course it has to meet ADA, which means it's gonna
Absolutely.
be at least 5 feet.
Right.
So authorization to research this further. Bring it
Right,
to
so
staff.
to do that, I guess I'd like to hear if somebody would I'll make the motion if somebody would second it, to authorize that to that extent, just to look into it. That's the motion I would make. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So thank you for that. So, with regard to traffic calming, in my mind, I thought there was one other, there is one other thing. So, I received this from our mayor, who I think included you on this email today, and just asked about whether the solar speed sign on Rosalie is in working order.
It was working, I checked both of them out, so we rotated the panels so the collector would pick up more sunlight on Rosalie, because the other one's at Pine, so if you're heading, what would it be, east?
East.
No, yeah, east, between High School and Brentwood Boulevard, that one flashed. I was gonna go out after this and look too, because I think the one on Rosalie, the issue is you've got those trees along the Leewind Trail,
Keeping it.
and we had such cloudy weather the past few days that collector probably didn't get enough sunlight to build up the battery.
Okay.
But if it's still an issue, I guess I'll have to check with the arborist to see if maybe the trees can be trimmed on the other side, because I really don't want to move it.
Yeah.
I
It
need
was
to-
working last week.
Yeah,
so
and it was
I think
working
that went
today,
well.
but maybe there was a little sun, I don't know. I just know it was flashing
Doldrums,
25
January.
at me, and
Right.
it's 20.
Right. The other question he raised was, this was from a resident at the coffee
Mm.
that he sponsors. They complained that the entrance into the library, I'm assuming off of Blitzinger.
What do you mean, really?
The-
Ukulele, maybe?
Eulalie, oh, I guess that's right, yeah.
Across from the fire station.
across from the fire station, right,
Yeah.
is not wide enough to allow for ingress and egress simultaneously. And asked whether or not an entrance-only sign could be installed.
Yeah, I didn't see how that would work. I looked at it today only because I can get in and out of it when another car passes me.
Okay.
It's at least 20 feet in width, I would
Okay.
guess. I
Depends
haven't
on the
measured it.
driver.
I would imagine that's so.
I just know if you made it one way, the difficulty then is you're gonna have to restripe certain areas of the parking lot because now you're forcing traffic in a definite pattern.
Okay.
I mean, I don't disagree, the parking lot's kind of strange.
It is.
I mean-
I'm not asking for any action.
Yeah.
I said I would pass that on.
What we planned on doing was, when we talked to Terry Johnson, we've got the sidewalk project by the library that's going on this spring. We're gonna take that book drop and shift it to the north so that then people that are dropping off aren't like that close to the entrance and people coming out of the main entrance. It's like shove the book drop further back so if you're in a car, you can put your
Yeah.
book in there and you're not right on top of someone else coming out of the library.
Yeah.
She actually asked us to do that and we talked to the library and they said they'd be fine with
Okay. Terrific.
it. So we'll shift that sometime.
Does anybody else have any
I
questions
thought
or
you had
concerns?
another item on the speed humps.
Speed humps.
policy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I sure did. See, I knew.
I've been waving my hands.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry about that. So to my memory is the same as Alderman Lockmiller's, that we actually sort of placed into that toolbox the ability to deploy one speed table per ward that could be removed, that would be actually bolted
Mhm.
to but could be removed. And I realize that right now we're talking about a period of time where it could be snowing and you could be dealing with snowplows. Where are we at on that? Is that anything that the department is looking at in terms of deploying those?
We've not purchased it. We've done the background on it as far as like dimensions and manufacturers and things like that, I know. I put it in the budget so that you could either go with one of those or like the radar enabled speed limit sign like you see at Pine and Rosalie. It's really dealer's choice to fit whatever the condition is at the street. We would go with a speed cushion, not a speed table, in the sense that the cushion actually has slots so that, your big fire truck can go between these slots.
Right.
The only drawback with those is most manufacturers recommend 24 feet in width from curb face to curb face. You don't always have that in Brentwood. Look at some of your streets, your Eulalie, there's no way that's 24 feet from curb face to curb face. So that wouldn't even work on that. It would have to be a speed limit sign. But I know we talked about it, the chief and I did, and, some streets could work, like say Pine, from like McKnight heading east, that first block or two, like near Kempton or even Hatton. So you could fit that there because Pine's wide enough. Now the only drawback with these is because it goes curb face to curb face, whoever parks in the street, I doubt is gonna wanna park on top of that hump. So they're just gonna have to move their vehicle while it's bolted down. And the only other thing I saw that would be a negative would be, we paved the streets, these all have an anchor sleeve that you screw a lag bolt down into to hold the individual panels so that they don't walk around. So you're gonna have holes machined in your new pavement. So if there's water that seeps underneath there, it's possible it'll degrade it faster if you did nothing and just kept it sealed. So,
I just get complaints about, perceived speeding like on high
Right.
school and different roads. And, the police are busy enough with what they have to do to be writing tickets for speeding.
Right.
If we can deploy things that don't require police attention to try to slow down some of the drivers cutting through. I just thought it would be a good test case to try some of these things. I know they're trying them in the city of St. Louis, all over, and they're putting in permanent fixtures, not just temporaries.
I know they put those big concrete balls in and people
They
hit them.
bash into those things all the
Yeah.
time, but they're putting in asphalt humps almost
Right.
every other block to try to curb people's speed. And I just thought it's worth trying something if we got an area that we're getting a lot of complaints on speeders.
Yeah, the only other drawback I saw is if you put it on Pine, what's to stop me from now driving on White? Because I don't wanna mess with Pine. It's got this speed cushion. I don't know. I know Lee Cannon always said that too. It's like you get rid of a problem in one spot, it just chases it somewhere else. So it's like unless you're gonna put them everywhere, and then now
Well, I think that's
Maybe.
something to consider, where if we decide to deploy one,
Hmm.
make sure that we're not throwing it to another street. I mean, I don't see anybody that would take another street other than high school. I mean, that's why they're taking them, to avoid
Right.
Brentwood. And so if we make it more resistant to speed, they may go someplace else. They may go back to Brentwood, instead of using or cutting through our neighborhoods.
I think last year, there was a consensus between Chief Curtin and Dan that maybe there was a specific area that in the spring we could do it.
Well, my understanding, pardon me, when we talked about this last, and the reason the 2 speed limit radar signs were posted was because that's what the committee chose in lieu of the speed table, or the speed cushions. I have advocated all along, the only thing that I would support would be the speed cushions with the slots. But I've also said right after that, that we have no experience with them, none. I don't know of any in the St. Louis area. They're big on the East Coast. So I don't know how well they will or won't work. And so if you all want to go forward and try that, I wouldn't get more than maybe 1 or 2 to start with, because they're not cheap either. I mean, Dan, what, you can get like 3 or 4 of those
Just the-
radar signs compared to the price of 1 set of those?
Yeah, because just the panels with no hardware, and if you put in one of these speed cushions or a speed table, you're supposed to put advanced warning signs saying hump.
Right.
So that people don't come barreling along, because it can be covered with leaves, or it's at night, you don't see it. They do make them with a reflective chevron. I don't know how long they last, but most of them are recycled rubber, the material itself, and then it's got the chevron that's got reflectorization on it, so that people can see that there's something in the road. It sticks up usually 3 inches, as most manufacturers, like 3.5.
What's the cost?
Each panel is like $1,500 with no freight. So, I mean, you're talking 5,000 or more for a complete set.
Right. So to take on the suggestion from Chief Curtin, what if we took up to at least at this point,
A trial.
ask Public Works to identify a trial location, perhaps on high school, where we could do this on a one-time basis, acquire one, do it, and see how it goes. I mean, I know we did a similar thing with regard to the speed, electronic speed signs, just to get it. And the only feedback I've ever gotten from people has been to be grateful about it. I mean, and it's been people who have seen it, both the one on Pine and the other. So, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to try something new.
So I'll make the motion. I make the motion that we direct the Public Works Department to work to locate a single location to deploy a speed cushion on a trial basis, beginning in 2020 when it's appropriate.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
My opinion on these hasn't changed since we last discussed it. Like, I have a philosophical opposition to speed bumps and humps and whatever iteration they come in. I mean, I think it slows down first responders, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of that result. So,
Okay.
so I will vote no, but
Okay.
I have my opinion on it. It just hasn't changed.
So let's have a vote by roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
And Alderwoman Sims.
Nope.
Thank you. So thank you for that. Does anybody have anything else with regard to
There's
traffic?
Alderman Weggie here and Lynn Good.
Yeah, which is the next one. So 10A is citizen comments.
Anyone? Okay.
State your name and address.
Well, so I appreciate you guys talking about the Litzinger thing. So I did some high-end engineering work in PowerPoint today. So that same topic, right? So, I mean, number one, I know the residents submitted a petition that invoked the traffic calming in April 30th. So I would appreciate if we could be responsive to them and do something with the signs. But I do think there is an opportunity there to do something. Here's kind of a picture of the issue of, here's a bunch of school kids, and there's a car right behind them, just kind of waiting for them to get through there. So it's a tough thing. I don't think we can move into those yards. They're very small backyards on one side, very small front yards. So I don't think making it wider. I mean, it seems to me if there is enough width, it's already so narrow that it's basically a one-lane road already, right? So if somebody pulls up and they look, because it's only about 40 yards, they look and see if somebody else is coming and they wait, right? So I mean, Brentwood residents are good at driving on single-lane roads and waiting for people, so.
Is, in this picture, is that a sidewalk on the south side, or is that just,
No, that's just Google Maps, right? So this is the road and then this is just the Google Maps.
I'm sorry, okay.
Right, so here's the path that dumps, and part of it is that,
Yeah.
you know, this Cecilia is the first road that actually has a path through Brentwood. So the whole corner of Ward 3, all those roads dead end, Salem, all those roads. So it's the first road that if you're coming west on Manchester, that's the first road you would take if you wanted to kind of cut the corner to Brentwood Boulevard, right, and cut through the thing. So that's why there's a lot of traffic there. Then you've got every kid who walks from all those neighborhoods coming up that path and then just dumping in right into that intersection. So, I mean, maybe if there is enough width, it seems to me that you can't expand the road, but, you know, consume some of that and put a sidewalk. Maybe there's a temporary thing where you stripe it for like pedestrian or like bike path to kind of start getting people thinking about it that way. But definitely at the very least, I think we should put the signs up ASAP and be responsive to those citizens. Because I get asked twice a week what is happening, why did you tell us to do this petition, nothing's happening. So I would appreciate that. But this is one of the bigger issues we have. Just running stop signs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure how this worked, but my name's Lynn Good. Some of you seen me before because we had some issues on Brentwood Place. My home is right behind where the mobile station is. And we were successful going through the procedures of getting some signs to help with, to keep people from parking along there. We asked for them to paint the curb where the fire hydrant is because there's been a lot of illegal parking. Sometimes it's even semis that'll back up in, you know, that I can see right out my front door, trucks with trailers, people parking on the other side of the street, which is, there is no parking along that entire south side of the street. But the sign isn't until you get to the alley. If you're familiar with that area, you have to go up to where to pass where the egress is for the alley to see that sign. So I think a lot of people don't even know there's no parking. We would like to see something more done to avoid that, you know, to avoid the issues there. It is hazardous when you think of all that goes on, all the ins and outs. There's the mobile station, people coming in and out. There are people coming from Brentwood Boulevard both directions. There's the alley traffic. Ours is a dead-end street. People don't have another choice. It's amazing. I mean, I'm kind of a night person sometimes. It's amazing how much traffic's going all over that area. So, but especially I see it during the day because the trucks aren't going to park there. They can get into the mobile lot. But a lot of these, it seems like these are patrons. People going in, not the trucks anymore. We used to have problems with the trucks with mobile. That now seems we're seeing like Midwest Waste, Cintas, FedEx, and I don't think they're making a delivery because they probably drive into the lot. Just various people that are doing yard, you know, pulling trailers and doing yard. What's another one? 2 men in a truck. I've seen them park on the no parking side. So putting a sign that lets people know and or painting that curb on the south side just to let people know, you know, it's not safe to park there and don't do it. People still do. I see people park by the fire hydrant all the time. The other thing is, I know we do, and I thank you very much for the police officers patrolling. I feel so much safer. I see that all hours, and the spotlight shining in, and that feels good too. I'm sure sometimes the officers are busy and they're not going to stop to take care of somebody who's parked in front of the fire hydrant or parked on the wrong side of the street. But I think if it's done a little bit when maybe it's a quiet time, that gets the idea like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't do this, or, you know, once in a while somebody just get a warning, hey, you know, don't park here. We just need a little bit more help. So I don't know if there can be a no truck parking that keeps people from parking by that fire hydrant and back where the resident only parking signs are, which is where I am. painting that curb, patrolling a little more, maybe just being more aware, the police officers being a little bit more aware of it, and it is, there is some hazard involved there because of not being able to see. My neighbor is not here, Michelle, but she drives up and down the street a lot more than I do, and she says she's not been able to see who's coming out of the mobile station when there are cars parked and trucks parked there. And then there could be somebody coming up the street or out the alley. It's just kind of it's a hazardous area. And I worry about the kids going to that convenience store. People are in and out all the time. So we'd like to have some more help with painting. And I did send Bola some specifics, the exact things that we asked for, which I think, did I cover everything there, Bola?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so the signage with, I don't know how you do that with no trucks, because they do park there a lot. Either a sign that continues to, further down the street, no parking this side, and I think painting that curb at minimum yellow down there at the, closest to Brentwood Boulevard, up along the old Howe building. So that would be, those are some suggestions that we have.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.